Hey, hi, this is Sandeep, and in this tutorial I'll go through the steps to explain you method validator. How do we validate the attributes from the user, the attribute that the input that the user is inputting those things with the help of method validator. Okay, so this is a department EO and VO that I have created out of the department table from the DB. Now just go to the business rules, as I want to create a business rule on it using method validator. Now method validator can be imposed at the entity level also and at the attribute level also. So I'll show you both levels, and I'll show you how do they differ from each other. Actually, you already know the difference. I have explained in the previous tutorial that how entity on a basic level, on a big broad level, that how an entity level validator is different from an attribute level. But I'm gonna show you one kind of a, you can say, a twist wherein how the department name, I can just go ahead and show you with the help of example. So let's go ahead and just see it. Click new validator here, okay, and just click method. So as you click method over here, this method would come over here and it would say create and select method. That is to say that it is gonna create and select this method for the validation. I'm gonna say in the failure handling that I'm gonna input one sentence that department name should be less than equal to 10 chars. Okay, so it's ready. So it says that entity Java class is not created yet because that method, that validate department name method that we saw in this tab, that actually is supposed to come under the implementation class of this entity object, which itself doesn't exist. So right now it is saying that do you want to create that entity object? I would say yes. So if you go to the Java, it has already created for us this class. Go inside this, and if you try to find our method, here it is, department name. So here I'm gonna write a simple logic. So this is our logic. It will simply check whether department name length is less than or equal to 10, then return true, otherwise return false. So it's the basic logic, and it will work also. The same kind of a thing you can actually define on the over here by going here and selecting method over here. Okay, you can then create you can in that fashion this method will be created in that entity object. But this kind of a rule, this kind of a method validator I have already declared in the previous tutorial, so I'm not gonna show you that. But apart from this thing, I'm going to show you something additional in this. See, what happens is that when a form is represented in front of you, you will try to enter the department name, and then you will tab out because this is an attribute level of validator. So as you tab out of the department name, or as you click on validate, right, this method will be triggered. And when this method is triggered, this kind of a logic execution takes place. Now the thing to remember here is that the value of department name that you have entered in the UI has not been set in the transaction for department name. Okay, so if you try to print here the value of the department name, then it will not print the value inputted by the user, but it will print the value which was earlier. Okay, the original value of the department name. That is to say, I will just show you a simple thing over here. Go ahead and print the department name value. See, in this entity object we don't have accessors right now, so I'll go here first. Let's just create the accessors. Click here, say I want accessors also in this, click OK. Now you have got the accessors over here, all these kinds of things. Now I'll go to my validate method. Where is it? So now I'm gonna print this. Okay, I'm gonna say department name is equal to get department name. Now the thing to notice here is that suppose you suppose something comes up, some department name comes up by default, whatever is there in the DB. You try to modify it. As you try to modify and you try to tab out or you try to click validate, this method will get fired and this statement will be executed. As it says get department name, it will get the original department name which was there, which was fetched from the DB, not the one which you have entered just now, not the one which the user has input just now. Okay, and then it will use this department name which is entered by the user, which is passed here as the argument, and then this will be executed. Okay, so you can check this by running this. Here is the output, and if you see here, let's say here you have administration, right? Let's say I just update it like this, and now as I tab out or as I click validate, that method will get fired, right? And what should happen? What should happen is that as that method gets fired, it will get over here, it will say get department name. So obviously when it says get department name, it's gonna print only administration. It's not gonna print this whole stuff which you have just entered, because the value, this whole stuff value administration underscore new has not been set to department name in the current transaction. Okay, whatever you set, because this is an attribute level of the thing, right? This is attribute level, so it's not gonna set this, it's not gonna set this at the attribute level. Sorry, in the current transaction it's not gonna set. So you can check this as you tab out. Here our validation got fired, and if you just see the console, you will find department name is equal to administration. That is the original value which was fetched from the DB, right? So this is how it works. And even if you try to click on validate, again our validation rule is fired, and this time what it says, it again says department name is equal to administration, right? So here it works like this. Okay, so if you are passing the value, all the values that are being passed to the validator, method validator, which belongs to an attribute entity attribute level, then this is what is going to happen. Okay, so let's close this, and now here you have got business rules. If you want to define one more business rule, you can go ahead and create new validator. In this case, what will happen if you just choose on method, obviously whatever you have defined earlier will already appear over here. If you want to select this, you can select this, click OK, and do whatever you want inside this. Or if you want to create a new one, you can say create and select method. So this method will be created, and then you can go inside this method and do the coding over there. Okay, so now I'll remove this method. Now the same thing can be defined over here in the entity level. Just go and select method, and here I'll write the message as department name should be less than equal to 10 chars. Okay, and here is our method which will appear in the EO. Click OK and go in the EO. If you try to search this, here is our validate department EO. Okay, so here I'm gonna write some logic. The logic is pretty much same as the previous one. It just prints first of all get department name, and then it checks the length. Okay, so but the difference here is that when you set a validator, a method validator, as the entity level, okay, then whatever value you enter over there, it will set the value. Okay, it will set the value in the entity in the current transaction. So this time if you're gonna display the department name like this, it's gonna first of all set the value of this entity in the current transaction to the same value which user has input. Okay, so what will happen, this department name is going to the same which the user has input just now. Okay, so in this case this is going to set the value. Okay, I mean department name is going to be set what the user has just input. So let's just save this and test this whether it happens or not. So here's our output, and if you just say new, so what should happen, our method validator should get fired, and this thing should be set to the department name, and this thing should be displayed when this line gets executed. So if I tab out, nothing will happen because this is attribute level, I mean this is entity level validation. So you have to click on validate. Our validator works fine, and if you see over here, department name is administration new. So the thing to remember here is that whenever you are using entity level of the method validator, then whatever value you enter, it's gonna set that value and then going to validate that, right? And but it's not gonna do anything in the database, it's not gonna do anything over there. And at the attribute level, if you try to set some value, then whatever user inputs, after that the validation happens. In that validation, or whatever value or whatever method actually is being called or is being run, you must remember that the value which the user has input has not been set yet to the value. What I mean to say is that the user, whatever he has input, the value has not been yet set to the corresponding attribute, if that is an attribute method validator. Okay, so I hope this explains you well. I'll